folks ready? About to do the digital inclusion showcase, or climbing the ladder. So what we're really talking about here is that what to do once you get broadband. So I'm super excited what we're going to do. We're going to start with Kairos, so we'll bring a few more people up on the stage, and we'll kind of have sort of 3 chapters. So, and it's very informal. Feel free to stop us and ask questions. I think I forgot to say my name is Ann Tracy. I write the Blandin on Broadband blog. I'm more comfortable on the other end of the computer, but I'm happy to be here. And so I'm excited about the things that we're going to do. I try to get some things that are practical, some things that you might be able to go to your community next week and start looking at trying to deploy, and some things that are a little more aspirational. So you got something to think about for next year. So without further ado, I'm really going to just jump right into it. And we've already seen a little snippet of Kairos Alive, but Maria, I'm just going to point it over to you. Get you started.
You're all great. Thank you so much for being part of what Kairos talks about is what you're already doing, which is creating community together. And we're a social impact organization powered by dance, music, and theater. And that's storytelling, really. And what we do know is that social isolation, right, is growing in our communities, clearly in our rural communities, but also in cities as well. And actually I heard it's equivalent to smoking. Am I muted?
Yes.
I don't know why I'm muted. Oh, I think it just went away. Can I talk on this? How about, oh, there we go. Oh, yeah. So anyway, social isolation, one I've heard is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So what Kairos did, we started 20 years ago, really as a intergenerational group performing, just giving people the idea of all ages, creating community together. And over the years, we worked at the VA hospital, adult day program through the Veterans Administration, but also at senior centers, in schools. We really talk about bringing older adults and people with disabilities into the center of intergenerational community. So we were being challenged by how do we keep on bringing this work, right? We can't be in 12 places at once. How can we engage community, because we know the research is showing us that creative connection is key to well-being, right? And my board chair, our board chair, Dr. Gary Oftedal, and I met a number of years ago at the ICSI conference, and we started talking about the power of creativity, the power of that idea. Aesthetic reset is another word for it, but thinking of how we create together. How can we bridge communities with that? So again, we were challenged. Oh, they'd like me to unmute my microphone. That's a different microphone. And so we had this idea, how can we use technology to connect to people? And how do we help people become comfortable, including older adults, including frail adults, even with challenges, care partners, all different ages, people with all different abilities. How can we do it together? So we're gonna unmute. All right, let's see what happens. Okay, so I think that right now we need to see how that works. So I'm just gonna, and then we'll see what happens. So if you look over here, actually we're on that screen right there. Give a wave to them, because they can see us. La 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 la. La 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 la. I wanna dance, I wanna sing. I'll bring my grandma, we'll do our thing. Dance together, young and old. Everybody's story told. La 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 la. La 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 la. beautiful dance floor here, live from the Grandview Lodge in Nisswa, Minnesota. And it's so good to be dancing with you today. Did you know, Nick, that dancing together, well, dancing and dancing with someone else is good medicine?
One of the best things you can do for your body.
Amazing. You know, and dancing is really just keeping that beat in your body. Will you join us? We're gonna go keep that beat.
All right,
That's right. And dancing is just keeping the beat. It's just taking a walk, or a roll, or a stroll. And we'll just start off dancing together with a little bit of a flash mob, right?
And this kind of a flash mob is something you can do wherever you are.
That's right.
Maybe it's in your kitchen.
Or in your living room.
Or maybe it's with your children, or your grandchildren, or your parents, or your grandparents.
But it starts just with a simple pattern. So try this with us. Remember, this is a perfection-free zone. No right or wrong. Do what feels good in your body.
Here they can
We
see
go
us. Here we
up, we go down. We go up,
we go down.
We go side, side, side. Yeah,
side.
Jody, we go up,
We
we
go
go down. We go up, we go down. We go side, side. Looking good, Sherry. So that's the first part.
Yep.
And the next, pretty simple. We just go 1,
2. We're slapping our legs. 3, 4.
We go in,
We go
out,
You
in,
go
out. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. We go in, out, in, out. So what I love about the flash mob, it's just a simple pattern, and you can do it really to any 4/4 music,
Yeah.
right? And this one, we're going to do each part just once.
Just once.
Yeah. And remember, just follow along. And the person next to you before we start dancing.
Let's try that.
Yeah. So
Hello.
I just need to turn to the person next to you and just introduce yourself. You might already know each other, but
Oh yeah, introduce my
we good.
Hi, Parker.
All right. So just find that beat in your body.
All right, we can't hear the... Huh. We can, see if I can make the...
All right.
We can't hear the music, guys, very well. We'll go...
All right. We go up, down, up, down.
You go side,
side, side. Next side.
You go
1, 2, 3, and 4.
You go
In, out, in, out. We go up, down,
You go
side, side, side. Yes,
Side.
Gary.
Go
1, 2, 3, 4. You go in, out, in, out. You go up, down, You go side, side. Looking good. Go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, you lean out, in, out. Go up, down, up. Now I'm gonna stand.
Oh,
Are
yeah.
you gonna stay seated? All right. 1, 2.
All
Ready
right,
to
then
march?
Monica stand. Can you do it for a second?
Out, in, out. Go up,
Down. You go side, 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 side. You go 1, 2,
3, and
4.
4.
You go
in,
out,
In.
in and out.
In.
Oh, this is a little, oh, isn't it a weird one? Up, down, up. That's
Down.
right.
We go side, 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 side. We go 1, 2, 3, 4. You go in, out. Don't you feel
Oh,
smarter?
Should we
yeah.
do a little in and out?
All right, last time. All right, hey Parker, Nicholas, wherever you are, could you show that video? Maybe not. Oh yes, there it is. So this is what we do.
You know, Jan, how do you feel out there?
How are you feeling, Jen? That was you. She just asked how you feeling.
Nice.
She said she's good.
Good.
All right, we've got
You know, it's so
just
cool that we can see each other when we're dancing and we're being able to share this with each other. We can see each other in real time. So it's good to see you, Jan, and Laura sitting next to you over there. It makes a whole world of difference when we can see each other and communicate this way.
So Nicholas, could you show that video? Because it's almost time to end. So could you show that video? I don't know if they hear us. So one of the things pardon? Well, if not, I'll just keep on talking. I think we should, so what we wanted to show you, one of the things we noticed here is that the internet is very unstable. So as you know, that always is a challenge, right? And so in our work, we always make sure that we have volunteers that are at the different sites. But literally, when we're doing this show, we're broadcasting, or streaming, excuse me, live to a group of older adults in South Minneapolis, primarily Hmong Americans who don't speak much English, but they enjoy dancing with us. We're at the same time, we're streaming to a group of older adults in Two Harbors, Minnesota, in the congregate dining site. And in the afternoons, we have a group of young people with disabilities in California and Santa Cruz. And at the same time, we're streaming to a group in Orlando, Florida. So, and what we love about it is that, and could you knock on the door and just say we need some help from those, wherever they are? One of the things that we love about it is that we're realizing that community is creative, right? Even on that digital dance floor. And so that we find that sometimes when folks come on early, even before we start our programming, that they'll start waving to each other, following each other, and could you have, it's time to go. It's too late. It's too late, sorry.
Now people have reason to talk to you later too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, what we wanted to show you, and it's just a 2-minute video which we'd love to share with you, and it shows, kind of gives you an idea of how when we're doing this show every week, that folks can see us at the same time and we can see them. That there's a way that we're building community across what we say the digital dance floor. But we see the possibilities are about helping people become fluent in that video communication, right? And as it gets better, it'll be even easier. But we see ourselves as bridge makers between having that actual broadband ability, but how do we get comfortable with, how do we get comfortable with making those connections on our own? We think this is a great way to start building community through this creative intervention, and then how do we then move from there? And I think that's something that we're all talking about. But we'd love to share more with the work that we do. We're here all 3 days, and let us know and we'll send you a link to that video as well. But now you know the secret you already knew. We were trying to do a Zoom broadcast from just the other room. So thank you. So, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a little fast-paced because we've got a lot of material to cover.
Only if there's nothing a librarian wants more than a mic. Yeah, right now. Especially when it's getting over a cold. All right, so thank you, Kairos. Thank you so much for doing that. I shouldn't do this. I probably go dancing 3 times a week. So there you go. I always think dancing is super important. So the next round of folks we have here, I can see that the PCs for People's folks are already starting to get started. So we've got Tina and Mary, and then after that, Ann, you're up on deck. So you guys close. I'll tell you a little bit about PCs for People. They've been around for a long time. They refurbish computers. They take refurbish and just redistribute computers to folks often who have not had a computer before. As I recall, you guys started in Mankato maybe 15 years ago at least, and they've been in the Twin Cities for a number of years since then. So it's always fun to their offices, their St. Paul offices are quite near me, so I'll stop in now and again and see people get their new free or low-cost computer, and they're so excited. It's absolutely fabulous to hear. So it's, you guys.
we go.
Okay, we're getting closer. I can see it on the screen. And I should have asked if anybody is Maria still in the room?
I'm here. Sorry.
Does anybody have any questions for Kairos while we have this unscheduled minute?
Unscheduled minute.
Yes. If we have a venue or a group, what are your eligibility requirements for?
Just interest, and we'd love to connect. As you know, like the rest of you, we're a nonprofit organization, so it's all about funding. We're in the process of trying to create sponsorships to be able to cover the costs for people. We did a project with the Northland Foundation, and that's how we got our work going in 2 harbors. So yeah, talk to us, because we're all about that, and Grand Marais is so beautiful and not very far away.
That's great, thanks.
Oh yeah. Should I keep on zagging?
Yeah, come on up, because it's also being live streamed. So
Oh, it's being live streamed. I'll get you a card. So,
great. Any other questions? And Gary, if there's something you wanted to add, Gary's a semi-retired medical doctor. He's still.
I'm just failing retirement terribly. So as a physician who practiced for 26 years and then worked in a collaborative for 13 more, I became aware the biomedical model is far too limited and helps address well-being when 80% of what influences your well-being is in the community. So my interest is in how can I help support activities that recognize the power of the arts, especially participatory arts. How can I change the dynamic from asking how does a healthcare system engage a community to the right to the question, which is how can a community engage the healthcare system? The healthcare system needs to do what they do better, but the community needs to do more. So I'm working with projects on the arts and creating the aesthetic that helps support people's engagement. When they were dancing, I looked around, everybody was smiling. Think about the power of starting a meeting, of starting a conversation with something that makes people smile. It changes their mindset for the next 4 to 6 hours. How do we start building that in? And I'll shut up anytime if they're still playing here. So love the idea, really appreciate what I've heard from Blandin thus far. I've already bugged several of you about further conversations, but the ability to work collaboratively, to think about how you introduce the arts, participatory arts, storytelling, dance, visual arts, and all that, as part of a way to engage communities and use broadband is critical.
I had a question for you.
Thank.
Did you have an aha moment where this became a priority in your life and practice?
You know, I'm so sorry to cut that off, but and that's a great question for later, if that's okay. I mean, it's a great question. I'd like to get the answer, but we have a lot of people lined up, and not all of them need PowerPoint. So I'm thankful for Kate today for a couple of reasons. I don't know if folks know, but we're live streaming all of the conference, and she brought a couple of extra tablets, a couple of extra iPads that we've been using to do some of the streaming. Only 8. Only 8, yeah. Which led me to say, well, I just think that your job is so interesting. So we're going to change it up a little bit because she doesn't require any of it. Because ironically, she doesn't require any of the technology. So Kate, you want to talk a little bit about what you do and where you do it?
So, who in the room has ever been hacked and lost money or their identity stolen or anything like that? Yeah, I see quite a few of you, and my own family got hacked to the tune of $80,000 and got it all back and everything. And banks are good about it, but it happens, and it happens to a lot of people. And my job, those are those people who kind of get in the way and, you know, will find your social security numbers and will find your credit card numbers and use it until you notice.
You finish, you go ahead.
They're all over the dark web, and everybody's heard of the dark web? Yep. So, I mean, they're all over the dark web, and they'll steal your information and spend your money. And my job, I started off when I was probably about like 6 or 7, breaking computers down all the time because I wanted to push it further, and my mother would have to call Apple for hours and stuff. So I was really interested in how they worked and everything. And so I really got into it, and I started building them, and it became kind of a passion of mine. And I also have a passion to kind of help people, and the medical field wasn't really for me, and I've always been a techie. I have too many computers, you don't even want to know. And so basically I was like, how can I combine helping people who, like many of you, have been subject to attacks from hackers, and how can I blend that technology with helping people and stuff. And I didn't even know a job existed like this until a few years ago, but there are firms that do penetration testing is its technical term. If you want to be cool, it's called pen testing. And basically what we do is like offensive security. So, for example, a company will send me their program, and I will like push it and push it just like I used to when I was 6, and try to find where it'll crack and where it'll break, or where there's an exploit where maybe a hacker could find a back door into your computer, you know. And so I don't know if you know what that's called, but black hat hackers are the ones who steal your money. I am a white hat hacker, and I try to prevent them from being able to do that. And it's becoming more and more of a challenge because the software they develop, they're coders, just like I am. And the software they develop, I'm developing the opposite to prevent them from getting all of your belongings and losing your home. And I mean, so I kind of got into it. I really, it took me a long time to find what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to help people and I wasn't sure about computers. But I went into the healthcare field. I taught in Singapore for a while, realized that first graders are not my favorite people. and then I was like, so I just came home. It was time to come home. I had been traveling in Europe and Singapore for like 10 years, and I finally came home to be with my folks and, you know, help them around the house and stuff like that, which they would tell you I don't. But I was looking for a job, and I just kind of like typed into Google like assisting people and like hacking or computers or technology or something, and this offensive security website came up. And basically what we do is we spend time on the dark web finding what is being newly developed that we have to fight against, and then we change their programs to either not work, or we develop programs that prevent them from working if they do get on your computer. So, I mean, there's Norton and there's all of these that are good companies, but people still get through, and it's a challenging job, but I finally found something that I'm actually happy doing, and it's very rewarding to see not all of you raise your hands when I asked who's been hacked. But other than that, we work nonstop trying to protect your computers. I don't recommend Norton. That was but you know, you have to keep an eye on your computer, and I would reformat it every month because they're out there and they're all over the dark web and taking advantage, and you want to protect yourself. So anyway, that's my job.
But also, what I think is so interesting is you're really able to work from home.
Yes, yeah, actually, I'm able to work from home right now because I'm doing penetration testing on programs because I can do that offline, but broadband would be really nice. So I could do like cloud penetration testing. I mean, there's so many options out there. And I mean, it's just, broadband is a necessity for that because hackers they get your information off the internet, you know. So I think that it's really important to have high-speed internet and to, you know, keep an eye on your computers. And I do the same thing, but as black hat hackers, but I do it to prevent them. So anyway, sorry, I'm a horrible public speaker.
That was very good.
That was wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just find that to be absolutely fascinating. And of course, I always like to be super nice to Kate because I feel like she could put on a different color hat to take me down. What I also think is fascinating is the ability to work from home. And if you want to keep a smart cookie like Kate in your community, having the broadband opens up a lot of doors. And there are just a whole host of jobs I think that none of us knew about when we were little. I mean, the job that I have, there was no word for that when I was a kid, you know? And thinking about what doors can open through broadband. So and now magic presto, we're gonna go back in time. So we're excited. So next we're gonna hear from the folks from PCs for People. And instead I'm gonna keep intros brief, it's Mary and Tina.
I'm going to stay close to the computer just so I can see what's up next. So, happy National Digital Inclusion Week. Shout out to NDIA. So we're PC for People. We are based out of St. Paul, Minnesota. We did start in Mankato. It was founded in 1998 and then flipped over to a nonprofit in 2007. So we have a national reach, and we actually have a short video because there's a whole lot packed into one, but the video kind of really lays it out and gives you some visuals for the scale and scope that we do. Maybe. Yep.
You just can't stress the importance enough of broadband.
For PCs for People, it's making sure our community has equal and affordable access to technology and digital literacy, both vital tools for full participation in today's society. PCs for People addresses digital inclusion with a four-step approach: source, refurbish, distribute, and support. Our ability to distribute technology to low-income individuals is dependent on our recycling partners that donate their end-of-life computers to PCs for People. Every new partnership allows us to distribute computers to over 300 new participants. The donated technology is securely processed at our warehouse. PCs for People is NAID AAA certified, an audited process that ensures all data is securely destroyed. Computers are then cleaned, processed through a stringent quality check, and installed with the new operating system. Affordable, high-quality computers are distributed through our retail stores and available online for purchase for eligible individuals. PCs for People is also dedicated to bringing computers directly into underserved communities through distribution events. These events are held across the nation to ensure affordable technology is accessible to those that wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to own a computer. Once a customer has received their computers, it is important that they are confident in their purchase and feel supported. Each computer comes with a 1-year hardware warranty. PCs for People also offers one-on-one digital literacy training to make sure customers are confident using their computer to accomplish their personal goals. Access to technology is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity.
So that's PCs, a lot goes into it. We have about 31,000 square feet in St. Paul, Minnesota, where we process all the computers. In 2018, our impact, we recycled 1,047,830 42 pounds of technologies. So when we can't refurbish a computer, all that extra stuff, we try and get to as close to a no landfill. It's not totally possible, but we try and really watch where our downstream goes. 18,132 computers were repaired and refurbished for reuse. 15,344 of those computers were distributed into our communities, and 11,068 new homes were connected to the internet. We do have a national reach, and we really couldn't do it really without our nonprofit partners. We have over 300 nonprofit partners, I believe that's where right now, who help us distribute the computers to their participants. So if you actually look at this map and you look at the map of poverty, I could have probably saved about 8 hours making this map because it literally is the same map, which really proves that that the low-income community really needs computers. All right, I'm gonna pass it up to Mary, who really has worked very closely with the Blandin Foundation for distributing computers.
Hi everyone. So we've been partners with the Blandin Foundation since 2010. Since then we've distributed thousands of computers out into rural Minnesota. And 66% of the families that we've given computers to have actually never owned a computer before. So that's, I mean, in this digital age right now, like that's pretty incredible. And that percentage is, oh, sorry, I'm moving away from the camera. That percentage is actually higher than what we see in urban communities. So along with that partnership, we've also really started to build out our digital literacy center. So that we've been able to partner with the CTEP program in St. Paul. So for the last 2 years, we've hosted a CTEP member who's really built out a digital literacy center for people who are purchasing computers through us or just individuals in the community. So we really recognize the importance of, you can get a computer, you can get internet, but if you don't know how to use it, then it's basically useless. So that's actually Norma, our CTEP member. But we have a couple of CTEP members actually presenting after this, and they can go more in depth with that. But the really great thing is she's able to work one-on-one with them and just get them to reach their goals, and she's able to, you know, work with them for a year or more than, and be able to see them if they're get a new job or, yeah, it's really a great part of our program. And then we have one more video, and then we're done. Thanks, guys.
So we kept it brief, and I know part of it is success stories, and we're going to show you a video of a gentleman and his mom at the end it resonates with me, and I hear her voice almost daily when things get crazy tough. You know what I mean when you see it. And this just really showcases just the different things that people can do with their computers, and it's not something that we would think of because we always think of jobs or obtaining jobs, resumes, applying online, but this gentleman has a whole new spin on what he used his computer for.
Oh. What does that mean?
It usually means that somebody has made it not for public use.
I will make it public.
Oh.
Take me 2 seconds.
Oh, wait.
It's worth it, I promise.
Sorry. But do we have to like relink it though?
No, once you change the.
Okay.
It's been fun to hear about the people who get computers in the different BBC communities. I remember there was one woman who was gonna. It was Christmas time, and she was gonna have to choose between Christmas presents or something way more practical. And then they got the computer for PCs for People. There was some woman who they got the computer, and she decided she was going to quit smoking to pay for the broadband or whatever internet access that they were going to get at home. And it's just touching to be on the front line and hear some of these stories.
I was just at an event, and one little girl said to her mom, they were in line, she goes, "Mom, I can't believe people are this nice." And then she was like an 8-year-old, and she comes up to the table and she starts jumping up and down. She's like, "We get the whole set and the tower." Like it was just like she had never had a desktop at home before, so it was just yeah, it's my favorite part of the job, hands down. Is it good?
No, it's not. It's private. I can't see it.
Oh.
I have a question over there.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah. No, it's open to anyone. Yeah. So, but because we only have one person doing that, instead of completely reinventing the wheel, we partner with a lot of other organizations that are offering like full classroom settings. or that could take like 30 people at a time, because
Part of like an actual structured course then, or is it more like that? I
Yeah.
have a question about this.
yeah, we can kind of do all of that actually. So she can hop on the phone and help people too who are trying to troubleshoot. Because we are nationwide, we do get people calling in from Kentucky asking a question, and because we're not there, we're able to troubleshoot over the phone, which is really great. And then so she'll work a lot of one-on-one, just kind of where they're at, what they want to know. It really ranges from learning how to properly use the mouse all the way up to this is how you can make a presentation. So yeah. Sorry.
Does she use some kind of remote software then? Or is it just?
It's really just like a screen share, and then yeah. Oh, it looks like it's ready. I just need to plug in the audio. We're ready. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
To look up how to make egg rolls or learn how to fix a bike, because we are bike people, like we just love bikes. My bike broke, so I'm stuck like, what should I do? How am I gonna fix my bike? So I was like, got the computer and I was about to go get the computer. So I got the computer, I went on Google and I looked up how to fix a bike tire. So I got the stuff that you needed, I got all the tools. And then while I was on the computer, I was writing it down so I could take it outside and know what to do, how to fix it. And then ever since then, we started helping other kids, just fixing their bikes, riding their bikes. And ever since we started helping people, they just started coming to us. So we started taking usable stuff off of the broke down bikes and put them on the usable bikes. Ever since we started working on our bikes, it's like, that was our thing, like, we felt like we was just doing a job, like, just helping the community.
Having internet access in your home, having a PC in your home is sharing the power of the world with your children, your family, because a home without internet access or a PC is a home that's not learning.
That's it. Great. Thank you, that's great. As I said, it's always touching to hear the stories from PCs for People. I mean, what a difference to have a computer in your house. I even think my own house, I have 3 kids, and at times we've had just 1 computer. These were 2 crabby kids. So next up, I'm very glad to have with us, we've got Anne from Oriole Core Access. So I'm going to leave it right to you.
Excellent, thank you. Hello, can you hear me well? Is this working? How's the sound? Oh, well, let's try this one. How about this one? Okay, better. My name is Ann Bravis. I'm from Grand Marais in Cook County. I'm delighted to be here because I'm just so inspired by all the leadership, the innovation, the sense of possibility. And I will start by telling you a little bit. My first, is that me? No. Good. No. I moved to Grand Marais in 2015, thinking I was going to write a novel. I've been a writer my whole life. I'm an entrepreneurial writer, meaning that I make my living writing, and I write just about anything, mainly science. So I've been a newspaper reporter, a speech writer, a teacher. I've done lots of things. So I went up to Grand Marais, and I discovered that they had rocking internet, but they really didn't know what to do with it much. Well, by applying for a Blandin Broadband Innovation Grant in 2017, I helped them figure out what to do with it. With one small thing, to engage youth, to create positive community, and multi-generational and cultural community. And so we started a children's newspaper, meaning it's a newspaper that's written, illustrated, designed, and laid out on a drag and drop website format that's by children. The children in my group are roughly 2nd to 8th grade, but I never turn anybody away. And to make it work in a small town during the school year, so that's a non-tourist season when there's only 1,200 people there, I needed to not compete with the existing good things that are working, such as sports and theater. So that was kind of a surprise to me. I thought I would do sort of a big city import where you just go and partner with the school and show up. No, you don't. It's different, is that they need every child has a space on their basketball team. They sometimes can't field an entire team. So I said, all right, I'm going to have to do a little improv teaching and modeling here as a mentor. I said, I will simply show them how I work. I'm a remote worker. I don't have to be in anybody's office anymore. My clients are around the world. So they know I'll be in the Grand Marais Library every day, and Wednesdays there till 8. So they can watch me write. They can watch me Google things like, what time is it in Japan? Because I had a client in Japan, and I wondered if I was going to make my deadline, and whose time zone we were working. So they got a sense of the black box of an adult working with technology. And also they got a more expanded sense of what writing is. Now, I did go up to Grand Marais to be a creative writer, a novel, and I do love literary writing. But I really actually don't know how you make money doing that. I know some people do, but I can figure out how to make money on the other things. So I'll stick with the things I know how to produce revenue from, and we'll move into the artistic writing later. So I certainly know how to make newspapers. I've done that for 20 years at newspapers around the country, most recently the Star Tribune in Minneapolis and Pioneer Press. And then for 20 years I've taught at the Minnesota Institute of Talented Youth a children's newspaper class for grades 4 through 6, which I call the aerobic newspaper, because we move all the time, and you'll notice I am moving all the time, so that's why we called it that. I'm the one who can't sit still. So I thought, how can I ask them to sit still if I can't? So I realized with these young kids and such long experience with them, how much they have to say, how motivated they are, and they just need a little help. It's almost like just, you know, putting a chair up to hit the light switch. They just need a boost. That there is no magical formula, there's no pretest to get in there. All children, all beings have this ability to tell stories. It's still intact in very young children. And it is degraded, I think, from premature use of technology, that they become reliant on a device. So the first thing I tell my students is, we are creating the internet. We are not consuming it. We're creating it. It's us. It's coming from our imagination, our disciplined minds, our resolve, our ability to interview and connect with people, to relate, to be empathetic. And so that's how you create community. So it appeals to a lot of kids, but they didn't have time, right? So that's when I became the improv teacher. So they know that I'm at the library at certain hours, I'm at the coffee shop, Java Moose, there's just one if you've been to Grand Marais, or the Y, which in Grand Marais is attached to the school. And everybody knows in Grand Marais at 3:10 the Y starts hopping because the kids just walk down the hall and fill it up. So it's really, and it's like that till 8. So sometimes I'm at the Y till 8. And because I know people will be there picking up their kids. The other problem in Grand Marais that probably many of you have, in addition to competition for kids in your existing good things, so you don't want to dilute it with a new program, is distance. A lot of your kids probably travel a long way. Very true in Cook County. Grown-ups come in for their jobs at 6:30 and they don't go back up the trail, as they say in Grand Marais, till, well, they like to get there by 8. So you say, so having things at night doesn't work either, because they don't want to be up the trail at 8. They want to leave earlier and light if possible. So from a programmatic point of view, I was really confused, like, how do you make this work? What's the structure? The structure is it's jazz. You just let it work when they can be there, and you accept who's ever there. So again, with, you know, the hearty souls of 1,200 people in this county, not that many kids. So Java Moose, Sundays between 11 and 12 might work. And so kids would gradually start showing up, and more would tell each other, and it's episodic attendance, but from that all, we were able to get newspapers out of them, because as a professional writer, I have no drama and no trauma around writing. I simply get the job done. And so that's, for some of them, that was kind of a new approach. You know, there was a lot of, you know, verging on modern dance. How do I get inspired? How do I do this? Like, you don't. You just write the story, and then if you have time to go get inspired, do it. But in the meantime, write the story, please, so we can move on. Then they would see, you know, and then they would learn, we'd all work together on making a website, understanding what kind of pictures tell a story, what kind of words tell a story, how do you combine words and pictures, what are some design principles? There's a concept in web design of typographic hierarchy. How do you guide the reader's eye and mind? You know, it's stuff that newspaper writers have to know, but it's typically not taught in schools because none of those are professional writers trying to get themselves read. That's sort of the difference, is that I have to get myself read to stay in business. So I realized doing this that there was a lot of immersive, sort of just-in-time learning. It's not like, okay, today we're using branding. It's more like, wow, we got to put something on here so people know who we are. Oh, I know, a logo. Oh, how do you make a logo? Oh, what are the concepts of logo? Oh, so we would just kind of bumble around that way, and it would work. And it would work because it was casual. And then it would get published on the web, and they'd see it. And now we're in our 3rd year of doing this. So the first year, Blandin funded us, and it was great. It was episodic. We got stories about the community history. The first kindergarten in Grand Marais, we went and interviewed that teacher, and the graduating high school class, and what happened to the herring fisheries. A lot of really good research skills, a lot of good interviewing skills, a lot of good how to be a good multicultural, have friendships with adults who are not your parents. All these things are good. And then the community would start turning to us and say, hey, could you put in a notice about this and that? Well, we didn't have ads, so we always make everything about notices. And it worked well. Then on year 2, we actually got a client. So here I am with a band of children, and we get hired by the American Lung Association Duluth office because they specifically wanted kids to be writing to other kids about the dangers of vaping. Now this seems contemporary, but this was in January 2018. And vaping was just getting on the consciousness. So we said, sure, we'll do it. So we got paid to write, they wanted social media at first, so we did a lot of social media posts to say, here's the evidence about vaping, here's what's known, here's what's not known. At that time, a company was just becoming popular called Juul, J-U-U-L. Now it's in the news everywhere. And we were starting to try to tell people what that was. Well, we realized that as well as good as we could tell stories and pictures and words about all these vaping devices, adults didn't know what they were. So we decided to become tabling event experts, which means that we would go to the farmer's market and the Lake County Fair and the fisherman's picnic, and we would show people what this stuff was. So I've replicated our booth. It's over in the exhibitors hall. And that was incredibly, incredibly powerful because we did it at the fisherman's picnic in Grand Marais, which there are 30,000 people there on a weekend. It's a huge traffic. So they felt so important. In terms of identity formation for a child, if any of you are looking for ways to engage children through broadband in your community, and you don't need a lot of them, you don't need a formal structure or a big budget, please, please contact me. Because my dream for this digital newspaper is to have a statewide children's digital newspaper. I think in many ways, children are the most responsible people to cover what matters in life. They are very positive. One of the consuming interests developmentally of a child is justice. And I just think that they have so much to say and that they are ignored in this culture and sometimes just really trivialized and just don't have the confidence they need. But a newspaper gives them the power of purpose. They know that they have to go out there and tell and write stories, draw maps, anything. Everybody's welcome. I have some issues that would be all cartoonists. You know, every first grade boy wants to be a cartoonist. Fine, be a cartoonist. Or stick figures. My son's a stick figurist. Fine. You know, it's just, we could bring them all in and find room for everybody. So the point I want to leave you with, what I see the value here is certainly community making. Multicultural, multi-generational, the power of purpose, and it's just so important to their identity formation. So I'm going to open it up. I'll say we're still working for the Lung Association. My last event with them, they won a poster contest, and if any of you have been in graduate school, you know as a postdoc and things, you have to apply to go to these conferences. We got invited to go to the National Conference on Tobacco and Health at the Minneapolis Convention Center in August. We were the only kids, the twerpiest little kids there. We had the best booth, I must say, because everybody else did sort of the unimaginative thing you always do in graduate school. And we did silly things because we're kids. You know, we had these jars of, here, smell this one, which one's a vape thing, which one's candy. And what was so funny is how much people responded to that. They came up to it, and I love the term one woman said, oh, it's an interactive. No, I never thought of this as an interactive. I guess it is, because we're asking you to come to us and talk to a kid about what is this. So it's been a great, great experience for us. We've got our clients still, the Lung Association. We have a new partner, Mayo Clinic, who are now giving us real live human tissues, lung tissues of lung disease, so we can dramatize and gross people out at our exhibits. And so that's what we're up to. I'll open it here for questions, but if you're interested, please contact me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I love Anne because she'll wing it because she has some PowerPoints and I will put that they are on the website. So we're excited about that.
But these are the things that the kids brand. The kids actually designed this. I mean, it went through my design studio, but it started as a picture on a napkin they sent me on a phone because our client said we had to say, Ran Marais smoked fish, not lungs. And they said, what are we going to do with that? Let's change it. I said, that is not the correct answer to a client who is paying you. That's why they're paying us, guys, to work with it.
And who better than their peers to speak to the kids most likely to go into.
Isn't it true?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes so much sense. So thank you all.
Thank you. All right, next we're going to hear from crews who work in libraries. So I'm going to say that we're going to have kind of I started so we'd have 3 groups come at a time. We're going to have about a 5-minute while we get set up here and wink into all the people who know that they're on deck next. So we'll we'll come back in 5 minutes and we'll start up again. So thank you.
No. I had no. Okay. Oh my god, you did great. I like totally forgot about recycling. I'm like,
Okay, so if we can get the CTEP and then what we've got is the Library Without Borders.
so just you just have to drag it over to the other screen. Oh, is CTEP up next?
CTEP's next.
Okay, so I'm
CTEP
gonna
and ODB.
drag.
Oh no, man. No, I'm trying to help Anne.
Yeah, it's just on split screen, so you can. Who's up after?
Here, I found it. DI Boreal Access. Does that sound like what Anne was looking for? I found it.
So it's CTEP and then Libraries Without Borders.
Well, on that net, it's actually one of the missions population one access is having young kids who don't purpose in their elders. Too often, they not have purpose.
I think I know where the library's one is.
Okay, so we can
So
actually.
that is the third one. That's the second
I'm so sorry.
Oh my god, it was great.
Yeah, so
Especially with that slide, they would be like, this one.
Yep, that's this.
Well, I'll just have it lined up for her so she can.
Sorry for doubling as
There-
a
Yeah. It never works out as planned. That's just the way it goes. And I think this mouse pad's a little.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I can certainly sit here.
I was calling this, I had a
You don't have to.
I think I'm actually going to get my mouse because I think the keypad's
I can do it.
Oh, you can get the mouse pad a little sketchy.
This one, here, we're not going to worry about that one because that one's done. But we just need to make sure that the.
So I have them both up, but I think the mouse pad's
I have time to run over to the hotel.
I know it. I know it.
I'm going to see if Chris. Okay, so here's so here's the next two.
Awesome, thank you.
But if you just keep it on this screen, you can have it set up. So when this is over, you can just close it, and then this so it's split screen, so you just drag it over as if it's like 2 screens. Okay. And I'll keep my mouse here. It'll make it because this is I think closing when you don't want it to.
Not even used to mouse either.
No, that's perfect. We're good.
Thank you.
slideshow, right?
Yeah. And then we've got, do we have the 2 or the 3?
So it should be
CTEP, and then Adam,
libraries.
Libraries Without Borders, and that, perfect. So if we start with the CTEP, that's fine. Good, thank you, thank you.
I'll leave my mouse here.
Thank you.
I'll be right there. Just
I
screen.
haven't touched that computer
Oh,
ever.
sure. It's
I
not
mean,
the
it's
most
not,
organized
it's not the
picture.
one I use. I mean, so I just put their stuff on 2 minutes ago, and
Oh, do they all? Yeah, and the naming system.
Well, as I
We're
said,
guilty of that.
nobody names their presentation.
Okay.
But children and elders, what they really needed about conversation, about right action, about moral behavior. I love seeing an adjunct. Archival storytelling.
All right. Being honest, I don't know if that was 5 minutes or not, but we're just gonna go with it. We're just gonna go with it. We're on librarian time, so excited. So as I said, we got 3 projects that are kind of library related, so I'm excited about that. First, we're gonna hear from folks from CTEP. And again, in the spirit of brevity, it's the soul of wit, I'm gonna say Charlotte and Abby, come on up and tell us about your programs and a little bit about CTEP.
So do we have to sit here?
You grab the mic in here. Okay. There was a clicker. I can try to do it.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Charlotte Jaden, and I am a AmeriCorps CTEP member at Rondo Community Library in St. Paul, Minnesota.
My name is Abby Hebler. I'm also a CTEP AmeriCorps member, so same position as Charlotte, except I'm at Minneapolis Central Library.
Today we will be speaking about the Bridging the Digital Divide with the CTEP AmeriCorps programs in the library. CTEP stands for Community Technology Empowerment Project.
Next.
So our AmeriCorps program is made up of 35 members, and we're spread out across the Twin Cities at 28 different sites. Some of us work with youth, some of us work with adults, but we all share the common goal at our sites of bridging the digital divide. And we do this by providing free technology instruction, and that is mostly to low income and underserved populations and those who have low technology skills.
So within our cohort, each member is based at a different site, and those sites can be anything from a library, employment centers, media centers, and adult basic education centers. and each center has a different approach to bridging the digital divide as well as teaching technology services.
So this is my site. This is Minneapolis Central Library, and as you can see, it is very busy. It gets a lot of foot traffic. And so my site is unique in that we serve a very large and a very diverse population. So the library downtown is within walking distance from 10 plus homeless shelters, which means that I work with a lot of patrons experiencing homelessness. I also work with a lot of ELL patrons, but the library is also home to a lot of really unique resources, and so I also get a lot of people that are doing advanced research and stuff like that. So I work with all types of people. And my work mostly consists of teaching basic computer classes in a computer lab, and I also work with patrons by appointment. So those appointments are usually set up because a patron wants to develop their computer skills, or because they have a specific task, such as a job application or something like that to work on.
So much like Abby's site, Toronto Community Library is also a very diverse library, and if you don't know where it's located right on University Avenue, right off the Green Line, which brings in a ton of foot traffic. At the library, I work in the open lab as well as teaching computer classes, and the open lab is a place for people to come in to get help with resumes, cover letters, applying for jobs, housing, and food. Pretty much anything you need assistance with in a technology lab. The library also offers a lot of different services for youth and services for those who maybe English is not their first known language.
So most of what Charlotte and I do is facilitate some type of basic technology instruction. So something that you and I probably don't think about a lot, such as mousing or saving a file or doing a Google search, is really our starting point with a lot of folks. And that's because those skills require access to technology and to internet, and also confidence. So a lot of times people that I'm working with feel like they're gonna click a wrong button and the computer's gonna blow up or something. And yeah, so email, that's one of the big basic technologies that we work with super frequently. So if you think about checking your email, so that requires knowing how to turn on a computer and log in. That requires knowing which icon is an internet browser and being able to open it and navigate to a web address. And then also remembering your username and your password for an account that you might not use very often. So that's difficult for me, and that's also really difficult for a lot of people that I work with. I don't know if you also are familiar with the phone verification, that you have to verify that your email account before it will let you log in on another computer. But since I'm working at the library, a lot of times we also have to do the phone verification stuff, and it can be a really long and frustrating process for folks. And yeah, that's especially important during the job search process.
So the job search process can be difficult if you don't have any prior experience with using technology. A lot of applications are now online and require an email or account registration to fill out these applications. Also, a lot of people might not have a resume, so in the Rondo Community Library Open Lab, we have resume templates that are super user-friendly. However, even if they're user-friendly, it still can be a scary process. So myself, along with 3 other volunteers, work with patrons and participants who come in and are seeking these library skills.
So this photo is a little hard to see, but this is during a one-on-one appointment with a patron that I work with very regularly. His name is Gregory. So like Charlotte said, we do a lot with job searching, but most of us, or both of us, really focus on working with adults, and we do a lot of other stuff besides job searching as well. So this is an example of that. I've been working with Gregory regularly for about a year. and he is working to digitally archive his late partner's artwork. And his late partner, Nigel, had hundreds and hundreds of pieces of art that we're working to scan and edit and save in multiple places. And so at this point, I really am just kind of there to support him, because at this point we have been working together for a year and he does have these skills. But again, this kind of goes back to that confidence thing. You know, like he is very nervous with the computer because he didn't grow up using it. So what have we found that works for us? So like I said, the one-on-one appointments, I really like those, like with Gregory, but we also teach computer classes, and I often refer self-starters, people who prefer to teach themselves. I will refer to them to one of these online educational resources like lynda.com, which is free with your library card. Recently rebranded to be LinkedIn Learning, I think, but same idea, all the same videos, free with your library card. Yeah, and I don't have an open lab setting, so I do a lot of one-on-one appointments, and those work really well. And Charlotte does an open lab every day, and that has been really successful.
Yep.
So along with the things that work, there are some things that are challenges. So a patron might come in for a class, but then once they leave the library, they don't have internet access to keep working on those skills, such as typing on typing.com or Microsoft Word or even North Star. So there's also the lack of a cell phone, which can be very difficult because, as we know, a lot of these email accounts, you have to have a cell phone, but someone might not be able to afford a cell phone, so they're missing out on creating the email. A lot of classroom settings can also be difficult because everyone has a different style of learning. So if it's all one pace, it might stress a lot of people out, and they might not want to come to these classroom settings. Another issue, sometimes a challenge, is language and communication barriers in both the open lab and classrooms. A lot of our patrons who come in might not have English as their first language, so it can be difficult with communicating back and forth little things such as applying for jobs or housing or even food assistance. Recently I was working with a patron named Peter, and this was his first time kind of getting used to an email. He had an email before, but he hadn't really known how to use it, so he didn't really. I was teaching him how to use it, and his big fear was that someone was going to hack into his email and have all of his personal information, all of his personal conversations, and that really scared him. So both fear and trust can be a big challenge within technology, not having the access to technology, because when you're working with someone, you want to make sure that you can trust them, but not having prior knowledge can make it very difficult.
Okay, so one of our challenges that Charlotte kind of mentioned has been like participation in our computer classes. So sometimes we get one or two people in our computer classes, and that can be really frustrating when you're on the ground every day and you see a lot of people that could really benefit from attending a class. But we also kind of see that as a success, because when CTEP first started, classes were full, and we were kind of at our capacity in terms of serving our community. So how we are kind of combating that is through teaching more advanced classes, so something like Facebook or intermediate levels of Excel and Microsoft Word. St. Paul Public Library is also piloting a new learning circle program, which would involve students teaching one another and everybody working at their own pace. So we're going to find out this year how that goes, because they're just starting to do that. And then we're also partnering with community organizations. So Charlotte teaches computer classes at the Ramsey County correctional facility. I have partnered with a workforce organization, and I'm teaching computer classes there. So sometimes it's just getting out of the library and into those more structured spaces for learning. Are there any questions?
Actually, I have a question about Gregory's artwork, or his partner's artwork. What did it look like?
It's a lot of everything. He has poetry, some digital art that he created in like a paint program. That's really incredible. I could show you. There's an article. The City Pages wrote an article about it. I could show you that later. If you
Yeah, I'd
want.
like to see it.
Yeah.
Do you both speak fluent Spanish to help some of your patrons?
I do speak Spanish. I wouldn't say fluent. I can understand things and I can communicate in a few words back to them, but that is about it for me.
The St. Paul Public Library, the St. Paul Public Library system has cultural liaison, so a Spanish-speaking cultural liaison and Somali, and they are so helpful, especially within the open lab. So a couple months ago, one of the housing services opened up for the first time in 5 years in St. Paul, and there was so many people that were just coming in through the doors, and a lot of people, English was not their first language, so just having those cultural liaisons coming in was so helpful because we were just able to get people out and new people in and just helping a lot of people. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so how do we photocopy your model and apply it in our own little rural community libraries?
Well, our program director is going to be the program director of the CTEP program. She is going to be here later today, so maybe we could connect you with her. But yeah, so the CTEP program is unique to the Twin Cities. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, what strategies do you use to move people in, to make people aware of your program?
Okay. Well, so the downtown library has so many people already in it that just posters and flyers are typically enough. I don't know. Do you want to say something about that?
So I don't know if anyone's familiar with the St. Paul Rondo Community Library, but it's in a really busy part of town. The Rondo community is huge and has a lot of rich history within it. So for me to promote my classes or even my open lab, I usually will just go out into the community and meet and talk to people, so then they know a face. So when they come in, they know who to talk to, and also I'm not just some random person approaching them.
Does that kind of answer your question?
Thank you both so much. It's great to hear from Charlotte and Abby because they're really on the front lines. And then we're going to talk with people who are at a different, might be able to answer some of the questions that people have just asked. So Adam, are you next?
I'm ready.
All right. Again, brevity being the silhouette, here we've got Adam with Libraries Without Borders.
Perfect. How's everybody doing? Get the energy back. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Adam Eckelman, and I am the Executive Director of Libraries Without Borders. Today, can we go to the next slide?
Sure. Thank you.
Today I'm going to talk with you guys about 3 different pieces of my work. I want to foreground all of this by saying that our next presenter, State Librarian Jen Nelson, and I are going to be doing a much more in-depth conversation about the role of libraries in promoting digital inclusion, particularly in rural Minnesota, on Thursday at 9:45. So I'm hoping to see all of you there. But for today, I'm just going to do a really quick recap about some of the work that I'm working on at Libraries Without Borders, both across the U.S. and particularly here in Minnesota. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about where I come from and where Libraries Without Borders is coming from, why we're here. Second, I want to talk about our work in laundromats. And finally, some of the new projects that we are building, particularly in suburban and rural communities in partnership with rural libraries across the state. Can I jump to the next slide? So before I get into all of this, I want to start off by framing the question that I ask myself at Libraries Without Borders. above all, our mission is to promote access to information for those in need. And when I say that, there's a really important word that I want to underline there. And that word is access. In my role, I'm asking myself, how do we ensure that low-income and marginalized communities in this country have access to the critical library services that they're looking for? And I'm also asking myself, what are the barriers that currently exist that are preventing folks from reaching what they're looking for? Often, I generalize that into 3 categories, but there are so many other barriers, and I know many of you are familiar with those. Talk about barriers to transportation, how difficult it can be to get to a digital literacy class that's happening at your public library. Maybe you don't have the money. Maybe the bus systems don't reach you. Maybe your car's out of gas or it's in repair. Another barrier we often see is time. Folks lead busy lives. When you're working 1, 2 jobs, and you've got a lot of kids and you've got food on the table, digital inclusion can sometimes take a step back, and we want to meet you where you are. Third, and often most common, it's just awareness. So many folks in all the communities that we work with are interested in the services that we're providing, but they're just not aware that they exist. Often folks aren't even aware that a service that you're providing is relevant to your day-to-day life. And so in my work at Libraries Without Borders, we're thinking broadly, how can we design new programs and outreach initiatives that help to break down those barriers and meet people where they are? So Libraries Without Borders, as you might guess, is an international organization, and we're actually founded in Paris in 2007. We work in over 30 different countries, and one of the big and principal features of our work is something called the Ideas Box. It's a pop-up mobile library that we have set up in refugee camps in Iraq and in Syria, in Bangladesh, in rural Colombia, West Africa, and all across Europe. One part of that is internet connection. Often we're working in locations that have no broadband connectivity for hundreds and hundreds of miles. We've created generators and new technology in order to really bring a library into spaces in which there might not even be a formal school system. One of those I brought here just as a demo is something called the Ideas Cube, which is it's an offline internet connection. It's a totally remote and self-sufficient internet connection. In addition to that, the Ideas Box includes a number of other materials, books, computers, and we do a lot of work with local libraries and sometimes national library systems when necessary to curate that content. Let's jump to the next slide. This is a photo from a project we had in Iraq. Next photo. And here's another one of a very large project we have in Rwanda and Burundi. Let's go to the next one. So in 2014, the New York Public Library asked Libraries Without Borders to demo the Ideas Box in the South Bronx. And this was an opportunity for us to say, what models, tools, and strategies might we be able to bring from some of our international expertise here in the US? We opened a US office, which is a separate 501c3, and we started to test and iterate. How do we leverage the capacity of our public libraries to think about some of those barriers that I just mentioned? Next slide. We've since brought the Ideas Box to a number of locations. Here's a photo from just last summer where we used the Ideas Box and mobile libraries as a method of fostering entrepreneurship and recovery in Puerto Rico. But we also realized that this model wasn't necessarily the right fit for every community. And going back to that question, how do we meet you where you are, we also realized that there were other spaces, other tools, and other strategies, particularly as we embarked on a partnership with the Department of Education here in Minnesota and Minnesota State Library. So through a number of different trial and errors, we stumbled one day upon laundromats. We tried putting the Ideas Box in public parks, we tried putting the Ideas Box in the waiting rooms of hospitals, bus stations, and lo and behold, one day, we're outside of a street corner, and we realize, gosh, people are really engaged. What is it that's so unique about this location? And we realize that laundromats, for a variety of reasons, are a really, in some ways, ideal place to foster educational programming and to really bring library services. What emerged from that process was this program, what we now call the Wash and Learn Initiative, or for short, WALI. The program is really, it's 3 pieces, and you'll see them here. We've got laundromats, we've got libraries, we've got community organizations, all working together to figure out how can we bring the services from your organization, whether that's a digital literacy class at the public library, whether that's a mobile health service that you have at a community-based health provider, whether that is, we've had financial tax assistance, and a number of different services. And asking ourselves, how can we take that and perhaps install it into a laundromat? Much the same way we were thinking with the Ideas Box, but in a uniquely, and in some ways, uniquely American context. But the question is the same. We're asking ourselves, how do we increase access to information for those in need? And how do we do that by bringing library services to communities? Go to the next slide. So here's some pictures, just to show you what it looks like to build a library in a laundromat. Often there's a couple pieces. We need technology, computers. We need tablets. We usually have bookshelves, furniture, tables, chairs, rugs. Let's go to the next one. And the next one. Here's a photo. Oh, you can't see it as well, but from some of our work in Scott County in Minnesota. Finally, jump to the next one. But on top of those resources, you also need people. As some of you know, libraries are not just about resources. It's having a place, having resources, and having people, trained librarians, trained facilitators who can really bring that space and offer opportunities for learning. And so at each and every laundromat that we work in, whether it's in St. Paul in partnership with actually the librarians at Rondo and the cultural liaisons, whether it's in Scott County, Anoka County, or Moorhead, whether it's in one of our programs in Baltimore, in Raleigh-Durham, or Oakland, California, we actually set up schedules just like this, where we figure out, okay, every day, what hours are we going to have librarians offering typically one-on-one tech support and reference at the laundromat while people are waiting for their clothes to wash and dry. Step to the next slide. We've created tech interfaces and platforms that take the services and ideas and platforms that you might see at the laundromat and asking ourselves, okay, what makes this unique? How can we tailor this to make it more unique and relevant for the folks that are at the laundromat? Often that means taking a program and condensing it so that it meets the time that you're waiting for your clothes to wash and dry. It's not rocket science, guys, I promise. Let's go to the next one. And also asking community members, what kind of library do you want to see in this space? Where do you want the books to be? Where do you want the computers to be? Where do you want the shelves to be? And what we've learned over time is that the best way to build a space and to create an ecosystem of learning, it's not to parachute in. It's to start in a very grassroots sense, talking to each and every resident and customers and say, what are you looking for? Where are the gaps? And this gets to a broader question that I know many of us have been talking about today, but what we realize through our work and the way that we approach digital equity and digital inclusion, it's in a holistic set of needs. We've seen again and again in laundromats in Minnesota, across the United States, and in some respects around the world, that so many community members are looking for digital skills, they're looking for broadband connection, they're looking for internet, but often not as an end in itself, but as a means to another end. They're asking, I want to do online banking. What are the tools and resources and skills that I need to get there? I want to be on WebMD because I have a question about a rash. Okay, great. What can we do? How can we equip you with the information and skills that you need to get there? And how can we do it right here, right now in the laundromat? So a lot of our work in laundromats has, you can probably imagine, focused on urban areas because that's where there are a lot of laundromats. Typically, you need a laundromat if you don't have the space or you don't have the capital. About around this time last year, we started thinking more expansively and asking ourselves, how can we bring library services, technology, and digital inclusion programming from suburban and rural libraries in Minnesota and bring them in the same way to meet folks where they are. Through a number of partnerships and connections, we ended up connecting with a manufactured housing community in Fridley, Minnesota, pejoratively known as a trailer park or mobile home. We partnered with the leaders of that community, and we found what I would describe as an ad hoc meeting space. And we started that community design process. Jump to the next slide. Where we talked with residents, we brought the local librarians from the local branch together with the residents. And everyone sat down, Anne was there, Jen was there, and we said, okay, what do you guys want to see in this space? What kind of library do you want? And what kind of skills are you looking for? Jump to the next slide. And here's what we saw. We saw that internet and Wi-Fi were a critical need, but also not in isolation. Folks want internet and Wi-Fi, as you know, because they want health information and legal support and preschool programs. People also want arts and crafts. They want online books. It's a compendium and it's a holistic approach that we're really working on. We'll jump to the next one. Also see that for many of the residents in this community, access to internet is a struggle. Some folks can access internet at home, others will go to their friend or family, they'll go to a restaurant or a coffee shop. And what we're trying to do in this community and in other manufactured housing communities across the state of Minnesota is really create these spaces for learning, much like a library, to bring the resources and bring the skills and the personnel and the opportunities that you might see at a community anchor institution like a library and transform and transfer those into a manufactured housing community, into an ad hoc office space, into a laundromat. And I guess as I'm getting to the last part, we get to the last slide, I just leave a question here, which is, where else and who else can we be tapping into as a community of such a diverse coalition, from ISP providers to librarians to local businesses to national corporations. What are the spaces, what are the networks that we have at the most grassroots level, and how can we work together to think creatively about those gaps, about these barriers, about the who, what, where, and when? I'll leave it there for other questions. Thank you, guys.
That's it.
All right, I'm going to introduce Jen, and then I'm going to put up the PowerPoint, because this is we're having some technical issues. That's okay. It's very funny. I host a radio show once a week where I sometimes have to talk to people and fix things that are broken at the same time. So, and I don't usually have such good help. Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. State Librarian Jen, here we go. Jen Nelson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am happy always to have a talk about libraries and talk about what they mean in today's society. How many of you have been in a public library recently? Excellent. I'm glad to see that. Anything stand out for you? Yeah.
The archives.
The archives?
Yeah, I was at the St. Paul Archives, and just what a rich reservoir they are.
Excellent.
It's easily overlooked.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. The broadband, yeah, that's huge, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today. Can we go to the next slide? So I work at the Department of Education, and we really try and frame the work we do around certain principles of equity. So for this particular talk, it's really the kind of underlying equity issue is prioritizing equity, making sure everybody gets what they need in the way they need it, and then improving the conditions for learning. And that's really what libraries are doing with technology. The next slide.
So just a couple of facts and figures. We are blessed in Minnesota to have at least one library location in each of our 87 counties. In total, we have 355 public libraries that saw more than 22 million visits last year. So that's pretty incredible. We're up there at the top of the nation in terms of library visits. About 70% of Minnesotans have a public library card, which again is up near the top of the country. We're still doing reference transactions, we're still checking out books, we're still doing the things we used to do, but we're also doing things with technology. And next slide. So I just wanted, as I thought about this talk of how to think about libraries and technology, I came up with 3 themes: portable, in place, and online. So these are 3 ways that most likely the library that's near you is providing technology and resources to your community. So we'll go through those kind of briefly. So we'll talk with portable. These are all things you can check out from a library in Minnesota. So you can check out a cry-cut machine, if anyone knows what that is. It's like a laser cutter. You can check out a laptop, you can check out Wi-Fi hotspots, and you can check out ice fishing poles. And so we've got quite an eclectic collections here in the state. You can also get snowshoes and bun pans and all kinds of cool stuff. So the next one. And those are all things that you can take home free of charge for use at home or in the community. We also have libraries that are putting different kinds of spaces. This is Anoka County Library. At their local YMCA, they have a vending machine where people can check out books with their library card. So by necessity, it's a limited selection of books, but it is books and you can check them out at no charge. They also have a distribution system where they drop books off at community locations. That's that big pink thing. It's actually, the technology is kind of cool because all you do is you walk up to it and you swipe your library card and your cube opens. So it's just fabulous. So the next one. St. Paul Public Library has done some really interesting work, and these are all available for checkout by the library. They have signs. They're really looking at Pop-Up St. Paul is how do we support our community in meeting the needs that they have around building community. So you can check out karaoke kits, interpreter kits, where you can get 12 systems. They're like a headset thing where somebody can translate during the course of the session. They have podcasting kits, the mini movie making, and my favorite is the PA systems. So you can actually go and check out a projector and a laptop and the tools you need to run this kind of meeting. So, and again, it's all available. These don't go through interlibrary loans, so you can't borrow them, but they are really looking at making the community stronger through the resources that they're providing through their Pop-Up St. Paul project. So in place, libraries of course have computers in the buildings. The number of computers has stayed really stable over the last few years, about 5,600. What we're seeing a lot is people bringing their own devices. But even with that, people use computers 4 million times, use a library computer, and access the wireless 7 million times. So it's a total of 11 million computer uses in our 356 public libraries, which is pretty impressive. I should have said earlier, 99% of our libraries have Wi-Fi access. A good percentage of those have fiber available, so they're a good connection, they're fast connection. They work through a lot of the cooperatives, anyone here from the educational co-ops, we appreciate your support with internet access and E-rate filings. Next one. So in place, there's been kind of a movement, we were talking about it earlier. A lot of libraries have computer labs where you can come in and work on a computer, but increasingly libraries are incorporating other types of technology. So there are a couple of examples. I guess they're a little harder to see, but where people are creating games using the technology that over on the left is some kind of wire spinner kind of thing, but they're using it in some kind of manufacturing. They've got 3D printers, they've got laser printers, they just have an enormous range of types of technology. My tip for you is if there's something you're interested in that you wouldn't be using all that often at home, but other people in the community might be interested, talk to your library about it. We've got one library that circulates sewing machines because people have a demand for it, but they don't need it all the time. The next one. This St. Paul Public Library, the Arlington branch, has a a digital media learning center for youth, and they have a music making studio, sewing machine, and the picture in the middle are people knitting and crocheting. So as I think about libraries and the conversation we've been having about community, this is building community, it's cross-cultural, it's really working to make people feel comfortable and not feel isolated where they live. This, I just happen to like this picture because of the smile on the kids' faces. I thought that was just charming, so that's why you get them. This little girl used a makey and Scratch to create her own version of the game operation, which I thought was brilliant. So online, libraries also have access and provide access from home, so you can use things from home online. Kind of an impressive range of things that are available. The eLibrary Minnesota is something that the state provides. Has anybody ever heard of it? Oh, that makes me so sad. So eLibrary Minnesota is a set of 56 different online resources that you can use from home for free to do all kinds of research and learning. They have a tool on it called Learning Express Library, where if you're preparing for a GED test, if you're preparing for a licensing exam, you're preparing for the pipe fitters exam, you can take practice tests on there. So they've got just a wealth of information available for learning on there, but also a lot of fun stuff and great for homework for kids. And that again is available to all of you. You can just go back once more time. The newspapers are also available there, and that's something that we have a lot of people in Minnesota who come from other places, myself included. And this is a great way for people to stay in touch with what's in their back home, what's happening back home, and give them a link back home in a way that's relatively easy, again, from home or from the library. Moving on. Minnesota Digital Library, has anybody ever heard of that? All right, we got one. So the Digital Library has partnerships with about 120 cultural institutions in the state and serves kind of as their online archive. So you can search the Mayo Clinic and look up old photos and letters related to the Mayo Clinic from the historical societies all over the place. And then we also have a project we call eBooks Minnesota, which I'm going to guess nobody's heard of it, but it is, again, a free resource. It's free online books. We have a relationship with a company called BiblioBoard, and we have access to about 8,000 titles, which in the world of ebooks isn't a lot, but it is focused on Minnesota. So there are a lot of good titles on there. It's free to use. You check out the book and you never have to return it, so you don't have to worry about that. Teachers use it for classroom teaching because you can use the titles simultaneously with 26 different kids can have the same book at the same time. So it's a really nice resource that the state makes available. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about in online is the Minnesota Libraries Publishing Project, which is a tool and a resource, as I'm thinking about Ann's talk about Boreal, great resource for all of you, where you can go in. It's basically an ebook platform, so you can write a book and format it, again, free of charge. They do a contest every year for the Min Writes, Min Reads. There's always a winner in fiction and nonfiction, so it's a wonderful tool that's available, again, free of charge, by auspices of your public library, but you can use it at home. It is supported by a couple of state organizations, the Minnetex Library Information Network and the Regional Public Library Systems do support that. So it's a wonderful tool for helping people who have that interest in writing or that interest in publishing. I have another, I got you on my mind. Okay, and then finally, you know, people talk about the death of libraries with the growth of the internet, and what we're seeing is that's simply not true. I dispel that notion for you. We're seeing, though, that the circulation of a physical book or thing you pick up is declining slightly, but the ebooks and the digital use is increasing. So at some point they're going to hit each other. I don't think it's going to be for another 10 or 15 years, but you're going to continue to see the use in libraries. It's just going to look a little different. Yeah, and that's that. Thank you. Any questions?
What is the file output?
I think it's EPUB.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think I saw it at Twin Cities Book Fair probably.
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
did.
know details about
Yeah.
it. So this
Yeah.
is motivating.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't know if your statewide office can address this, I think you do with it, but our librarian in Falls said that their fiber connections and older connections not as fast. They shared among multiple libraries, like little bandits. isn't that much. And also, so there are some changes now. It asks all the time to make that available.
Wait, I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Recently, it was they couldn't make it available with Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
So they have to pay for their own internet connection, both to address the speed issues and the Wi-Fi.
Sure. So most of the libraries in the state, with the exception of the metro area, run their internet access through the regional public library system, and that's the one that's making decisions about bandwidth and use and that kind of thing. At the state level, we do have a regional library telecommunications fund that we provide, cover the non-E-rate covered costs of both Category 1, which is basic connectivity, and Category 2, which is stuff related to it. So you got my card, you can just call me and I'll remind you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. Thanks very much.
That was good.
I hear you start talking about E-rates, and I think libraries can be helpful when you're investing in broadband and the infrastructure as well. So we're kind of 2/3 done, and I said we're going to do this in 3 chunks. So we're going to take about another 5-minute break, mostly so we can queue everything up again. And so everyone relax for 5 minutes, and we'll come back. And then we're going to learn about precision ag, gaming, and what's the third? Virtual reality.
Virtual reality.
Virtual reality. So great. 5 minutes.
Not that it matters. Has this one already been shown? Yes. Okay. So that was stressful. Yes, sorry. Poor Mary, because she's the one that I suspect because I can't. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if I can fix that. Josh is the Jake Tuesday libraries DI showcase. Ooh, no, not CTAP, not that one. I don't think that's it. Presentation. This one? I don't think so. I'm gonna see. I don't think Chuck sent one. Josh was in here 1 minute ago.
Wow, that's so cool.
Oh, good.
I'll use that.
Good.
Did I show you this, by the way?
No.
Do you have your phone on you?
Yes, but it's live streaming.
Do you have your computer on you?
Yes.
Can I steal your internet connection for a second?
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good.
It's an autonomous Wi-Fi network.
I think that I was wondering about that.
Yeah. So ready? So in what our international team, so this has been our solution for really long time, in which we just recognize that there will be no broadband connection for the next 10 years.
Right.
Which, when you look at our international work, it's about half.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's it's
you know,
small.
Here we go. It's our demo. Make you connect automatically now. So.
And is it a silent? How?
It's
spectrum? Is there, I'm looking for something while we talk. I don't know.
No, you're good. It is the same software as the Google Raspberry Pi.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Very
Oh,
similar.
amazing.
More built out. And so we curate our own content.
Okay.
So we have librarians on staff, and then we also work with the
Oh, wow.
library system.
Videos and everything. Okay.
Yep, to curate all the content that we want to put on it, and this becomes essentially the Wi-Fi network for, in some cases, for thousands of people.
Wow.
We get basic output data from all this. We can see the number of users just like you would.
Amazing.
Like you would
Yeah.
the ISP. So, you know,
That's
when we started working with Jen, we were setting these up in St. Paul. We were working in debt zones, and we didn't know what else to do. For the past few years, it just hasn't been an investment that hasn't worked anymore. So we were able to incentivize entrepreneurs to pay for their own.
Nice. Cool.
It's still something I always
So
like to keep
cool.
around because it's still relevant.
It is, yes.
Especially in these communities.
Some of these communities.
And we actually did a program with the White Mountain Apaches.
Very cool.
Where we did language revitalization, cultural heritage on the ideas cube, and it was just a really cool, cute content.
That's. I'm gonna remember that especially.
Yeah.
First, I'm gonna find this.
It's also very small.
Yes, it was very cool. I was gonna ask you. So thank you.
How do I get you go GVL?
There you go.
Gotcha.
Yeah, apparently.
Right there.
There. Okay, wonderful.
Is that the clicker right there?
Yes, it is. So if you can just cue it up now.
The right one? Oh, sorry.
That's you. Okay, great. It is. So if you would like to advance your own slides,
Sure.
you are very welcome to. Very
Is he next?
No, we're gonna go with.
Okay.
I'm just gonna let.
Great. And he's self-sufficient. Yeah. I had the different. That's fine.
All right. Timekeeper extraordinaire. I don't know if that was 5 minutes or 3 or 12, but here we go. We're kind of at. I'll admit that these final 3 presentations are more aspirational, I think, for most people. But I think they're so much fun to hear about. We're going to start with Jake, who we met earlier today, and he's going to talk about precision ag, which I never thought I'd be so interested in ag, but I think it's fascinating. So.
Yay! He's going to do his own thing.
Well, thanks.
And then,
As Ann said, I am Jake Ricky.
I'll sit here.
I am the chair of RS Fiber Cooperative, but I'm here today to talk about my day job, which is farming. My PowerPoint just kind of goes over a sampling of all the different technologies that we use on our farm. And they're pretty expansive. So here's a picture of our farm. It's located just north of New Ulm,
That's a nice farm.
about 20 miles. And I'm a 5th generation farmer. And you can see our silos there. Where we receive our internet is from a wireless connection to Fairfax, which is about 5 miles as the crow flies on the other side of those silos. So that's where our internet connection comes in. We have access to 50 megabits down and 25 megabits up on our farm. So just a little bit about the evolution of technology in ag. In the early 2000s, you started to see more and more farmers putting GPS on their tractors and on their equipment, and that enabled auto steer. And then once you had that GPS on there, it also opened up the opportunity to start mapping all of your operations in the fields. And once you started mapping, that is when you really started to create that data out in the fields. And ultimately, in 2012 or so, is when a lot of that data started moving into the cloud. And you needed to use a more robust internet connection to start working with a lot of that data. And now, even just a few years later in 2019, pretty much all of our data is accessible in the cloud, as well as desktop applications. So you can't see the picture very well, but this is inside the cab of our tractor. We've got a whole bunch of different boxes going on there. The box in the bottom left is an auto steer box. That's also mapping starter fertilizer, which is the fertilizer that goes on top of the seed as you're planting. The box to the right of that is one that's controlling the planter. It'll control how many seeds are output based on a map that you put together. Beneath that, there's an iPad connected to that same box that is also connected to the cell network and can feed information real time as you're planting out to anybody who wants to, anybody who's set up to be able to watch it. This is a screenshot from that iPad. So this map is generated as you're planting, and basically it's telling you how well your planter is performing out in the field. So the little red dots is where that planter has missed a single seed, corn seed, and the blue dots in there is where the planter put down multiple seeds in the same spot. And in both of those scenarios, you're losing and negatively impacting your corn yield, because ultimately what you want is to create a perfect picket fence in order to optimize yield. So this is just a picture of kind of what technology is available on modern planters. So on the left-hand side of the planter, you could have one seeding rate putting down a higher application of seed. On the right-hand side, you could have a lower seeding rate, maybe it's sandier soils, you know it's not going to perform as well. And then say you had a grassy area in between, you could tell the planter to shut off. I don't want to put seeds in that grassy area. And then as you're coming up to an area that's already been planted, the planter will actually shut off row by row as you approach your end row, so you're not overseeding. And again, wasting input costs as well as negatively impacting the yield. Here's a map of a plant as seeded population. So this is corn seed gone down. We've basically got 3 different rates in this field. The green rate in the center is your higher producing corn, so you're putting down in that area maybe 36,000 seeds per acre. The red area is where you've put down less corn because it's sandier soils and you know it's not going to produce as well. And then the yellow area is somewhere in between. We also have access to satellite imagery. So this is an image of that same field in the mid-season. So this was taken about September time frame, and you can see the you can see the sandier soils area. You can see where we've got compaction on the end rows, and then you can see your high producing areas there in the middle. And then ultimately you get the yield map, and it all kind of translates through. And ultimately, what you're trying to do with all this technology is get a fully green-looking map that that kind of evens out your yield across the entire acreage. So with that, with this technology, I can do a lot of on-farm research. For example, we know where we put starter fertilizers, so then we know where we don't put starter fertilizers. So it's very easy to do trials, to on-farm trials, to evaluate whether or not that product is worth it. So in this case, I've got 4 strips here where I didn't put starter fertilizer in the corn. And the crazy thing about this is that you can see, come June, you can see those 16 rows that didn't get starter fertilizer. But the odd thing about it is by the time you come to yield, that doesn't necessarily translate. So even though that corn looks shorter, it may or may not produce less yield than what's next to it. So with that trial, you can do statistical analysis, and this is the actual statistical analysis from that starter fertilizer trial, and you can see that they're statistically the same. Starter fertilizer costs about $11 an acre to put down, so you need at least 3 to 4 bushels in order for that to pay for the cost of that application. And in this case, it didn't pay. We do grid sampling on our farm. So this is a 50-acre field. You go out and you take soil samples from about 25 specific points where you upload that information into the computer, and ultimately you get a map that will tell you where you may have low phosphorus areas, where you have high phosphorus areas. So you can see here, this is a map of phosphorus, but that green area off to the right of our farm place there does not need any more fertilizer. It's that you put more fertilizer down there, and that's not going to help anything. The red area is where you need to pinpoint. We also have access to like in-season nitrogen monitoring. So this is telling us based on modeling with weather and your nitrogen applications and dates and how much rain you've gotten and heat units and all that. This whole giant algorithm spits out and it tells you if it predicts that you're going to be short on nitrogen, and it'll recommend an extra nitrogen application. In our case, you can see that giant red bar way on the top. So they were saying about mid-June, July timeframe, our corn crop was short on nitrogen. And this is a new technology. Last year I bought a drone. I bought a drone last year, just a regular old DJI with a stock camera. And this is the first year that I've subscribed to Drone Deploy, which I've found a number of different applications for. In this case, this imagery was taken in early April, and right around the time when the frost goes out, you can actually pick out the tile lines in your field. So if you can see there, I don't know if this is a pointer, yeah. Right there, you can see those lines right there. Those are actually tile lines that were put in maybe the 1950s or who knows when, or the 70s. But so now I have a map of where those are, and I can go out and find those if I ever have issues with them, or if I want to go out and add tile. The way that this software works, you take the drone, you basically tell what area you're interested in mapping. The drone automatically goes up to about 340 feet. It takes, in this case, it would probably take about 200 pictures. Those 200 pictures translate into about 2 gigabytes worth of data that needs to be uploaded to those servers at Drone Deploy. And then ultimately they stitch those 200 pictures together. This is a technology that's come a long ways in the past few years. And even just a few years ago, they really struggled to do a high quality map like this. And now they're getting that stitching down where it's really accurate. So this is a Drone Deploy image that I flew just yesterday. So you can see, that's the corn crop. We're almost ready for harvest, so that's all red and pretty much dead. But you can see the green, our grove and our grass, and all the various differences there in the crop. But the other thing I should say is this is an application that I probably never really would have attempted without a decent internet connection, because you're either going to have to drive those files to a library where you can upload them, or in the previous internet provider that we had before RX Fiber, it would have easily taken all night just to upload that one field worth of pictures, if not, and it probably would have failed even at that. It would have timed out. We also have livestock monitoring, so I have live cameras at my hog barns, where I can check them on my phone. I can check them anywhere on the internet, and it also helps for security and biosecurity and people coming up on the incoming and outgoing traffic on that site. At my new hog site, we have an internet-connected barn controller, so we can pretty much see everything that's going on at that barn. Anything that's connected to electricity, basically. You can tell how much feed the pigs are eating, you can tell how much water they're drinking, which specific fans are running, where are the curtains, if the curtains are open or closed, and obviously the temperature, and all these settings can be adjusted remotely as well. So really, in summary, digital technologies allow for a more individual and efficient use of your input costs. Where I can go out and actually do my on-farm research, I know whether or not a particular product is helping our farm or is not worth it. These tools also promote environmentally friendly practices by reducing the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus without compromising crop yield. So you saw that image earlier where we didn't need to put phosphorus in that center area of the field, but we needed more fertilizer in the back part of that field. So ultimately, this creates a win-win for farmers and the environment, because less input costs is better profit margin for the operation. I'll take any questions.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I'm from Blandin County in Canada, not too far from Detroit. Our government recently said 5010 is now considered broadband.
Yep.
What was that last year? What was 5 years ago? Anyway, we'll get into that. The stuff you're doing is fascinating. Is 5010 enough? I think that's what you say.
We have 50-25, so 50 down and 25 up. It might be for a couple of years, but I would get nervous awfully fast. So you know that 25 megs, and that's one of the things that RS Fiber does really well is upload. We can blow our competition out of the water when it comes to upload. So that 2 gigs worth of images, that will take about 10 or 15 minutes to upload. You know, you cut that in half, you're talking a half an hour, you know, an hour, whatever. I would say you ought to be looking at faster speeds awfully soon. You know, that 5010 might be comfortable for a year or two, but you know, the trend that we're on, it just continues to double. Yeah, it's borderline. Yeah. Yep.
With using the drone over your own land, did you have to get FAA clearance or anything?
It's not hard. I had to register the drone and then put like your FAA registration information on the drone. Okay. And then while you go through the registration process online, they just kind of send you through a questionnaire, making sure you understand the aerospace rules. And actually, when I was flying that yesterday, it was the first time I had a close call. There was a plane that came over the top of our farm, and I looked quick on the iPad to see where my drone was, because I could tell, but luckily it was off in the other corner. But had they connected, I think my drone would have been over the top of him. He was flying that low. Wow. Yeah. Yep. I am a huge user of Dropbox, so a lot of my data is stored on Dropbox. Yeah, I have the 1 terabyte or whatever. Yeah, I keep everything pretty much there, but you know, even like the yield data and stuff, that's stored on the Precision Planting, their servers and. Do you have to know what? No. Yep.
Do you feel as though the landscape land use data is adequate for your region, for farmers like yourself?
Land use data coming from?
Wetland, soil data, forest, you know, all the landscape sort of information that's available.
Yeah, you know, I'm really impressed with like the Renville County soil data mapping stuff that they have. But you know, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean I'm not going to do like my grid sampling. But no, I think the information that like Renville County in particular has put together for their soil maps is impressive in terms of its accuracy. So I think, you know, and that's a situation where it really varies county by county, but in our particular county, I'm pretty impressed with what they've done.
You good?
Thanks, everybody.
I'd be tempted to put a costume on that drone in case there are any other planes. Give me a little scare. All right, next we have Josh to talk about Giga Gaming with Paul Bunyan, telephone.
So yeah, hi everybody. I know it's been a long day, so I gotta say, everything that everyone's presented today has been awesome to watch and does my heart good for the world and the world of the internet. Working in tech can sometimes make you wonder. But now it's for something different, I guess. I work as the data services representative at Paul Bunyan Communications, which basically means I do anything and everything that comes across my desk that has to deal with the internet. And one day that happened to be plan a gaming community, like a gaming event, in an esports type field. So that's what we did. First, a little about me. When I was 7 years old, my dad came home with a Commodore 64 computer, and as soon as I learned I could play games on it, I was on that thing all the time. And that's how I got my start in computers, and that's probably why I work in computers still. But growing up, I knew that playing video games made me a nerd, and that's who played video games. Variety did a report just last year that reported that 67% of all Americans play video games, so that's a lot of nerds out there. And so is this. The picture is a little dark, a little tough to see with the glare, but that is a room full of people at last year's gaming championship. We had over 3,500 people show up. That's a lot of people for deep in the middle of northern Minnesota. These are people that typically stay home. They stay indoors for their hobby that they love. And here they all are facing each other. So it's been a great event. We ran all kinds of games. I mean, when we started, we did League of Legends, a lot of the top games. Here we were doing Overwatch, and in the middle we ran a Fortnite contest that was extremely popular. We brought a lot of new games in last year that kind of built a lot of excitement, I guess. That was the line at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday on a very, very, very cold October day. I think that was the first day that we got really freezing weather. But it did not deter people from being there. It's a little better shot of them swelling in the doors. Again, for a small community, fairly rural community, seeing all these people come together and have an outlet for their community and a place where they can meet other like-minded people was really great to see. Entry is free. I mean, it's free for everybody. As long as they're in the 218 area code, they're free to come, play, participate, watch their friends do the same. We do everything from the big esports type things to a Pac-Man machine where we just give away money for the high score. Last year we gave away $4,500 in prizes just to our community for coming out and having fun. So that was pretty awesome. All of these friendships we kind of try to keep going by keeping it on the Discord server. We have about 144 people that stay on it all the time. I mean, it swells kind of closer to the event, but it kind of backs up afterwards. And that's actually done a lot to get people talking and interested in joining other video game clubs when they're getting together. The Duluth Smash Brothers players, or Smash Brothers, have a club over there. Bemidji at our university, there's a Smash Brothers club. And a lot of these people didn't even know about any of that until they hopped into our Discord and started talking to each other. While the internet's great for connecting gamers from all over the world, it's a little tough for connecting gamers in their own community. And it's been awesome to see people actually make friendships. I mean, it's not too rare to pop into the Discord and see people saying, hey, are you gonna come get me? What are we doing tonight? I mean, and some of these people that I've talked to are people that didn't really have physical friends before running into something like this. So that's pretty cool. We also host a cosplay event, so we get lots of people putting their skills to use, dressing up. Some pretty awesome skilled people in our area, which is pretty cool. And it's another community that we feel is kind of underserved in the Northwoods. You might run into a lot of this stuff down in the cities or in bigger populated areas, but in Bemidji, Minnesota, it's pretty rare. So we thought it'd be great to give them an outlet as well. Some favorites like Ditka, the fresh-faced youth. There was a lot of upset people about the kid winning last year. It's not fair, he's too cute, they said. So we're actually going to have a junior competition this year so we can split them apart. But yeah, absolutely a lot of fun there. In focusing on gaming, I mean, we're a small ISP co-op in northern Minnesota. I mean, our job is typically to provide fiber and technical help to our members. doing something like this was completely out of the box for us. But it did give us a chance to invest in some tech that we would have never thought to. One of those things that we invested in was virtual reality systems. So we pretty frequently take those down to the high school for the sci-fi class to use. They read a story there called The Belt. It's an old story by Ray Bradbury. I'm not sure if anyone's read it, but even in, I think it was written in the late 50s, he had a story of two children who spent too much time in virtual reality and rebelled against their parents when they took that away from them. So this kind of wraps up their unit on that story. They get to go and play around in virtual reality, try some new stuff, and kind of see what that might be like. And even the teachers can't help themselves, they have to try it. Thanks for having me here. Again, I am inspired by all the good things everyone's doing with the internet, and hope that this is just as interesting as well. Thanks everyone. Good night.
There's going to be about a minute of setup now before,
yeah,
if anyone has any questions.
Were we expecting 3,500? Gosh, we were expecting more than the year before. It's kind of swelled every year that we've done it. So I think the first year we had about 1,200 people show up, and the next year was 2,000 people, but we didn't really expect to see 3,500 people, I don't think. I think we expected to see it keep raising, but that was a pretty good turnout. One of the other things our co-op does every year is we do a big fish fry for the community. It's not just for our members, it's for anybody who can get there can come and have some walleye and some sides and see some bands play and things like that. And we usually hit around 4,000 people doing that, so to see almost that many people come to a gaming tournament was pretty special. Any other questions out there? Yeah. That the games are really, really loud? Well, we actually have headsets for all of the games, so there's not a lot of that game noise, is that the concern? Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. We did play Fortnite on the internet, yeah. With Overwatch, we could host local servers. Fortnite was played over the internet. Even Overwatch has to dial out to Blizzard servers, so there's still a certain amount of internet there. On top of it, we stream and we run all kinds of stuff over the internet at that particular event, and luckily we can do all that on a single residential 1 gig connection. So, and that's a gig up and down. So, yeah.
I love the casualness stuff. That's a gig, up and down. As you have. I
was surprised when I started working there, but now it's one of those things where I tell people every day, yeah, we can do a gig. That's fine. That's within the realm of possibility. So it
awesome.
Feels good.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Someday it'll be like the motels that you see with color TV.
Yeah. And 10 gig connection.
Well, exactly. Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Chuck, I've been keeping all the intros quick, and I'm going to keep on that. So last but not least, and I'm so glad that you can do ethnicities. Drum roll, Chuck Olson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Chuck. Yeah.
Mic check. Thanks for the leading in with VR. That's very handy because I'm talking about VR. How many of you have tried VR, by the way? Okay, wow, that's so much more than previous years. All right, we're evolving our media consumption habits now. That's good. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what VR is in case some of you haven't had a chance to try it. This picture kind of tells you almost all you need to know. The way we're using it is with a product called Wellness VR. And what it is a way to bring the world to seniors and people living with disabilities who may not have a way to go out and see the world. So let's go to the next slide. Anybody remember the Viewmaster?
I do.
Yep, I actually just picked up one of the red ones at an antique store. I was very excited to find it. I mean, they're not hard to get, but you know, so we have precedent for putting weird things, you know, up to our heads to experience something. I mean, headphones are another weird thing we put on our head that sort of replaces the sound we're hearing with an artificial sound source. Going back even further to stereographic photography, which goes back to the 1800s, if anybody's seen one of those. So the idea has been around quite a long time. We'll go to the next slide. Even electronic virtual reality has been around for a while. This was the first VR headset. I think this is 1968 or something like that. Fortunately, I mean, that looks kind of cool actually, but they're a little bit more easy to use now. Next slide, please. So this is a typical headset now, and that's what we use for Wellness VR. This particular headset's called an Oculus Go. Kind of been waiting for this. It's a lot better and easier to use than your headsets where you have to stick a phone into a headset. Everything is self-contained here. These are $200 at Best Buy. The other cool thing about it is that headphones are actually built into the strap. So there's one less thing that you're plugging in. It's really just completely self-contained. So yeah, next slide. The thing that's different about VR from looking at a photo in a Viewmaster is that it's a total 360 experience. So you know what I'm talking about if you've tried it, but there's a little gyroscope in this thing, just like there's one in your smartphone. It knows which way your head is looking, and so it's, when you're looking at a 360 video, it's actually, when you turn your head, you're seeing what's over there, and basically it feels like you're transported. And it turns out that being immersed in scenes like that actually has some therapeutic benefits. Next slide, please. Why VR? Why are we even talking about it? Next slide. As I mentioned, a lot of folks have barriers to going out and experiencing the world, or even experiencing their communities. I've traveled around the state a lot, visiting different senior care facilities. Some folks can't even make it down the street to see like a community concert or things like that. There's a lot of things that might be difficult for them. Certainly financial barriers and so on. And this is what VR is perfect for, is kind of bringing the world to you. Next slide. I like to say that VR brings the happy. I've demoed hundreds and hundreds of people in VR, and this is almost universally, especially your first time trying it, it's like, oh wow, this is cool. The reason for that is VR is actually acting on your brain more than any medium that's come before. Next slide, please. So these images are from a University of Washington study about 12 years ago. Researchers wanted to try to answer the question, can VR reduce the pain of treating burn victims? It's very painful to treat burns and burn victims. So this gentleman on the left is an Iraq war vet who had burns all over his body. And the researchers created a VR experience called Snow World on the right. You can see his very cool tones. There's igloos and snowmen and things like that. And they built a custom VR headset so they could measure his pain levels while he was getting treated, while he was in VR. And they found that while in VR, his pain levels were reduced by as much as 50 to 60%. And that's twice as much as morphine. So that gives you an idea of the therapeutic benefits that VR can confer. And of course, the content is extremely important. If they were showing him a forest fire, the results probably would have been very different. So there's definitely a mind over matter, thing going on here. It's a kind of a massive distraction for your brain. Next slide. So we knew about that research when we started our company back in 2014, and that led to us creating a product called Wellness VR. And up until recently, because there's not a lot of broadband, Even in Minneapolis, our very first customer is Ebenezer in Minneapolis. And there are corners of the building that just had terrible connectivity or no connectivity. So we actually built the product to work without internet for that reason. So we actually, basically load up the headset with 360-degree videos, and it will play right off of the headset. But it's been changing, and you probably have the data on this, but we've been traveling around a lot, and a lot of these senior communities actually have really great internet, which means that it's actually possible to stream content now. So that means when we're producing new experiences, our customers can use streaming to access that new immersive content. Let's go to the next one. Basically, you can go by this one too. Basically, Wellness VR is a collection of experiences that we've filmed with a 360 camera. We filmed a ton of stuff up on the North Shore, around Minnesota. Basically what people have told us they want to see. So we've gone to the state fair, we've filmed farm animals, just experiences that people have been asking us for. Some of them are really engaging, and some of them are just pure relaxation. Go to the next one. We have scenes from around the world as well. I got to go to China with my funky camera. We have Stonehenge, Eiffel Tower, kind of a handful of international scenes as well. Next slide. So these are kind of the categories of content. I think of the relaxing nature scenes as really the kind of the core experience, and the reason what we made with Wellness VR was to relax folks. So we have a lot of beaches, Maui and Key Largo beaches, things like that, waterfalls and what have you, mountainscapes. Travel scenes. Some of the travel scenes aren't necessarily relaxing because the Eiffel Tower is like you're on a concrete slab and there's people everywhere. So that's more like, I'm not relaxing, but it's cool because you're traveling. And then arts and culture, we think of that as being part of wellness as well. So we partner with Minnesota Opera, Minnesota Public Radio, Brave New Workshop does an improv for seniors class in VR. So we're capturing performances and cultural experiences as well. Museum tours, we partner with a couple of different museums. So you can experience all this culture in a VR headset as well. Next slide. Yep, those are some of our partners. Next slide. So we've always thought VR is cool. Basically, I started the company immediately after taking off a VR headset for the first time. I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. But we wanted to actually try to study, what are the benefits for what we're doing. I mentioned the burn victim study. That was a very clinical, very specific case. We just wanted to measure, does this relax people? Does it make them feel better? So we did a small study at Ebenezer, this a couple of years ago now. It was a small group of aging adults. Some were in wheelchairs, some were not. Basically, all of them had the ability to communicate with us. That was kind of the only baseline. And they experienced VR twice a week for 4 weeks, about 10 minutes at a time, which is typically 2 different experiences. And let's go to the next slide. So these are the results. We knew it was going to be good. I mean, literally 100% of people said that they enjoyed the experience, but 94% of people said they felt less worried. That's the kind of thing that we were looking for, less stress. 97% said they felt more relaxed, more positive. So all the things we were hoping to find, we really did. Next slide. We don't go around saying it's a cure for anything, and this is all self-reported, but reports that people feeling sad or depressed actually went down. Next slide, please. This is a bit of a mess, but one of our favorite statistics from this is that socializing went up in their outside activities. So, we kind of theorized, well, they felt like they had traveled someplace and had something to talk about, like, oh, I went to Stonehenge, or have you tried this crazy VR thing? But it actually made them more social in their outside activities. As you may know, like, loneliness is a big health risk for seniors and aging adults. In fact, it's like worse than smoking and obesity. So anything that can get folks to socialize more is definitely a good thing. Next slide. Is there anyone here that's in senior care or has any interest in that? Because I can certainly skip over this stuff if not a couple of folks. Yeah, so we've used it across really every program. So we're using it in independent living, assisted living. And we're using it in memory care, which we get a lot of questions about. In fact, those folks, I think, perhaps enjoy it the most. We facilitate some VR sessions, and yeah, they're just so engaged. We've had some folks who, in a memory care unit, like there's one woman who doesn't sit still for anything. She's just really fidgety. She's getting up, and she usually walks out of activities and doesn't stick around. They've told us that VR is the only thing that keeps her there, and she's like really into it the whole time. You know, and there's some processing that happens. Like, you know, we asked them, like, did you used to go to Minnehaha Falls as one of the scenes, for example? So like, oh yeah, I used to go there as a little girl. You know, so it helps with reminiscence if it's someplace that they've been to. Could go a lot more deeper into that, but I'll just kind of keep glossing over it for now. Next slide. Oh, let's see if we can play a video. And these are the folks that were part of the study, by the way.
Oh, there's a doggy. Oh, he's got a ball. Oh, there's somebody in a wheelchair. It was relaxing. The scenes were all relaxing. Scenes of water. I like water. I used to swim a lot when I was a kid. With this, you can look around, and I definitely feel like I'm immersed in the scene.
Nice.
For example, if I were feeling tense or something, I could put on the headset and go someplace else. In some ways, I think feel that it's better for my head than TV.
As much fun as you're having, we're going to have to disconnect you.
No. Oh, now I'm on the beach. Wait. Let me sit. Okay. Wait, hold on. I'm at the beach.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I felt like I was there. Yeah, I liked it.
What do you like about it?
The actual feeling of being there. The sounds, everything but feeling it, because it does make me want to feel like I want to put my foot in the water.
So what did you think about it today, Gabe?
I love it. I just love it. Trees all around are really pretty, and once in a while you see something along the shore where somebody evidently has set up a place to just sit and relax.
Do you feel like you're there with them?
Oh yeah. That's why I like it.
Oh, wonderful, Gabe.
I know. I just as soon do this 8 hours a day. Because I love traveling, so I'm really enjoying the scenery.
So we don't recommend VR for 8 hours a day, of course, but unfortunately the battery would run out before that happens. So we do think about that though. Like, we don't want to like someone to get abandoned in a headset and goodbye, just stick you in a corner. We tend to use it. It can be used in groups or individually. We have a lot of customers that treat it like an activity, so they have VR club. We facilitate some of those sessions, so it's really about getting people together and going on a field trip. You know, what's new? Do you have anything new? You know, like, have you gone anyplace cool? But it can also be used individually, especially with some of the memory care folks, or you know, could calm them down in the sundowning period, especially if you find a piece of content that resonates with them, like, oh yeah, that North Shore spot, you know, maybe does the trick for them. The whole thing about kind of switching your mindset is a big thing too, particularly memory care. If it puts them in a good mood. They might not remember why they're in a good mood, but it does make the day go better for them and their caregivers. By the way, caregivers have stressful jobs too, so some of our customers are like, okay, we want one for the break room. Because they, you could take a 5-minute VR break as part of your job or something as well, which is something that we're looking into. What's the next slide? Okay, well, I want some more words, that's fun. Next slide. People have written about us, that's nice. Next slide. Well, we have one, this is the Pillars at Prospect Park is being built with Ebenezer and Oppenin for U of M alumni. And they actually put VR on the cover of the prospectus brochure. So it's the first time anyone has said, like, we have VR as kind of a selling point, which I thought was cool. Next slide. This gets into, so we're going out and capturing all this content and bringing it to folks. But we want to kind of give you the capability of capturing your own content. And if anyone can do this, if you buy a headset for $200, this little 360 camera, this particular one I think is on clearance for $90. But basically you can get a little 360 camera for $200 or less. They're pretty easy to use. And once you have that, then you can go and capture content just for one person if you want. You could go capture the family reunion or the birthday party, something that someone really wishes they could be at, and you could bring that to them and just them in their headset by loading it onto the headset. We're going to actually open up Wellness VR to accept submissions for community content. So if you go and capture something that you think everyone could maybe benefit from, whatever it is, we're going to accept submissions so that it would actually be propagated out through Wellness VR as well. And this is a really, I think this is going to be a very rich area for us to explore. We get a lot of questions about it. I think it has the most impact when it intersects with someone's personal history. So, for example, my mom has a great-granddaughter in Florida who she hasn't met. And so my wife and I went down there and brought the 360 camera, and we just set it up in the living room, and I brought a balloon, and so I brought that back to my mom for Christmas, and it was like a really moving experience for her, just to feel like she was hanging out with this granddaughter that she hadn't met. And then she's like noticing, like, oh, your brother has a bald spot. And the couch has moved. Like, she was just noticing, it's so spatial when you're in VR that you might notice all kinds of other things. But that was like a really deep, meaningful experience for her. And really anybody can do this. You don't need to be, one of our customers or what have you. Basically anybody can go do it. But it's just knowing how to do it. So we're working on a how-to video that just explains to folks, here's how you can do this and kind of serve your loved one or your community with a VR headset and a 360 camera. As I mentioned, the social aspects, you think of VR as being like, okay, goodbye world, super solitary, but it's actually possible to have really powerful social experiences inside VR as well. Certainly Facebook owns Oculus, so they're very interested in the social aspects of VR. I think one more slide that has a little sneak peek. See if this video will play. Here we've got, we're using these headsets, but we're actually avatars, so we can see the other people who are in different physical locations. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Say again where you are.
I am in the middle of Arizona. Not exactly sure where I am. I'm off Highway 10 in a hotel lobby.
Awesome. And here we are meeting up at Shovel Point in Lake Superior, having a virtual meetup of sorts. Yes.
Across the country.
Yeah, so that's kind of a hint at the future direction of we could actually feel like we're in the same space together, and hey, why don't we meet overlooking Lake Superior? So I think as we go forward, there's going to be a lot of social applications. more than FaceTime or anything else, you really feel like you're there with the person. So I think there's going to be a lot of stronger kind of communications and connections coming out of that. And I think that is my last slide. It is. That's all for me. Thank you.
Great.
You can get more information about Wellness VR, wellnessvr.io. And does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, just gonna say any questions?
So do people, do they like get a subscription from you? They buy the equipment and
Yeah.
buy a package, or how does it work?
Yeah, well, I forgot to mention. I mean, so we've been selling it as a B2B product right now, so it is a subscription, an annual subscription.
Okay.
Yep, and so in that case, we are actually loading up the headsets with all of our content. We come out and train the staff. We're about to offer a new version of it to make it accessible to all the people that aren't part of the senior community. Certainly, like a lot of people are aging in place at home, a lot of people with disabilities that are not living as part of the community, and so on. So we're getting ready to release a streaming app that'll be $15 a month. So that's going to be much more affordable than it is right now. But it does, of course, require broadband. But as I said, from my travels, senior communities, and people asking me, most people do have decent internet. I know we've had 6 headsets all streaming content at the same time at a senior community in Excelsior, and it worked great. I believe it actually will step down to your bandwidth as well, so there's different encoding. So if your bandwidth is okay, you'll get a slightly less high resolution version. But it's obviously a great use case for broadband, because these are really 4K files that we're feeding. Yep.
So with your subscription model, can our library get a subscription and then share that with other places, take it to a care center, senior center, take it to schools?
Yeah, the subscription is attached to the headset, so you can take the headset wherever you want. If you are going to be kind of out and about like that and don't know your internet situation, you probably would want to get our, what I'm not going to call it, a legacy product, which is where we're loading the videos onto the headset. So you can just show up anywhere and it'll work, but it's more expensive. If you will have internet, for sure, you can get the $15 a month subscription starting next month. And that's basically just attached to your headset. It's just like a Netflix account, basically.
That's in addition to the headset?
Yeah, so in that scenario, you're going out and buying a headset yourself, or headsets, and you're buying one subscription or however many that you want.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
A scenario here, an elderly person is in a nursing home, but he or she may have photos from when they were a child, black and white, whatever. Is there any programs or where you can scan, stitch them together and make a program?
I've gotten that question before. The question is, could you take a lot of photos and sort of digitize them into a VR environment? Technically, yes. We don't offer that as a service. Somebody should. Maybe it does. I mean, there's certainly services that do that for video now. And honestly, you can drop a regular video into the headset. It's not going to be that immersive 360 experience, but you can still experience it that way. But yeah, I don't know.
You'd almost nearly put them in a PowerPoint. I mean, if you wanted to go really low tech, put them all in a PowerPoint that went on a loop.
Yeah, VR, is maybe not going to offer much to those photos that you couldn't get just scanning it, looking at it on a laptop. Other than the fact that you are it's just you alone with that media, so it does feel more intimate. But there wouldn't be that kind of immersive quality to them. So probably the more traditional route would be better for the photos until someone comes up with something cool. Because you could have an app that basically ingests all those photos and makes a cool 360, and we should probably figure that out.
Should we write this
one
down?
Yeah, no, folks have asked for that, and that's a way.
You can interject old music, old favorite songs.
It's your own memory palace, right? You can go and visit your memories. We're starting to think along those lines. Like we've also captured our family cabin, and we're like my wife and I are like, okay, we're going to want this where we can't go to the cabin anymore, and her mom can't go to the cabin anymore. So it is starting to serve as a proxy for memories.
So many Alzheimer's folks, they remember later.
Yeah, and music is a big trigger as well. It gets complicated for us because we have to do with music rights. So we work with the opera and NPR, and in those cases, you know, they're handling the rights for us. But we have one woman in memory care who used to be an opera singer, and we played La Traviata in VR, and she's singing along, and she knows every word. Yeah, so there's small miracles happening. Yeah.
We're gonna playlist first.
Yes.
So we get their own suggested area.
Right. Someone probably wants Led Zeppelin. They don't have that.
Well, I'll just give you a challenge.
Yes. Yes. Accepted. Any other questions? Yeah.
How long does it usually take to go from like concept to camera to VR or reality?
It can happen fast. But it depends on like the camera we're using and things like that. There's a stage you have to stitch it. So typically the 360 camera has multiple cameras that when you stitch them together form a spherical video. So we have to go through the extra stage of stitching the footage. Once you do that, you've got a video file just like anything else. You can put it in an editing program. And I mean, I can certainly turn it around within a day if I have to. Yeah, so you can do it fairly quickly. Some of the more consumer 360 cameras will stitch it for you and have an app where you can like upload it even, so it can happen pretty quickly. They can also live stream. You can live stream from a little camera through a headset. I tend to avoid that because I always ask folks, have you ever had a live stream go perfectly well? Almost no one has, and if it freezes up in VR, like your whole world is freezing up, so it's kind of more dramatic for a live stream to have problems in VR than it is, you know, on your phone. Fun stuff.
Anyone else? Chuck, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, it's like a big, large faucet running over you with lots of good ideas, I hope. And as I said at the beginning, I hope some you can kind of take home and do in the next couple weeks, and something to think about over the, in the next year or so. So we're pretty much done. I see that now you have free time. In my high school, we never had free time. You have unscheduled time. Unscheduled time until 5:30. There's a vendor reception, and then 6:30 dinner. So enjoy some unscheduled time in the sunshine. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Do you know if we're allowed to stay in this room, or are they going to have to like set something?
They're going to set this room.
They're going to set this room. Thank you, Becky. All right. Thanks very much.
That's so cool.
Have you tried it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I have.